Creative Magic Club. What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I'm here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode. I'm very excited to introduce you to the incredible Kate Juniper, who is a life and book coach for women and femme writers, as well as a renowned editor for traditional Canadian publishers, including the House of Anansi and Vagrant Press. She's the founder of Juniper Editing and Creative, a boutique all-female coaching and editing house devoted to empowering women writers to believe in the beauty and purpose of their creative dreams and to go after them powerfully. Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, darling. Thank you so much for having me.
So Kate is amazing. I'm so excited for you to meet her. She's another internet friend of mine who we got the privilege of getting to meet up with in person in Montreal when I was back there. Also, she's from England, as you can probably tell from her voice. And we have very similar journeys. So I know that you'll resonate with her and her work. So please tell us, Kate, how did you get to doing the work that you do today?
It's been a journey of many trials and errors for sure. But I started, in school, it was all about books for me. That was really where I shone and where I found, the most fun and joy and escapism from school. I loved stories and I was a natural born critic and kind of handler of stories. So I did the usual kind of degree in literature at university, and my first big job, I ended up being an English high school teacher in an international school in the Middle East, in Europe, in the United Arab Emirates. So I was there for 3 years. I was, getting into the real nitty-gritty of grammar, of essay structure with these kids, of really teaching them their own critical processes. And so, basically every job I had after that, including through my master's degree, which was also in literature, it just kept coming back to editing. What other stuff I was supposed to be doing in my role, I also was the editor. And so I did that for a long time without really thinking of it as something that I wanted to do long term. I was editing, for a while, I was editing encyclopedia entries for Routledge Press, and it was interesting, it was engaging, but it was definitely not something that I thought of doing long term. And then I got a job at a publishing house and realized that I could edit manuscripts. And the first time I actually heard the word manuscript, it was like a full body, it felt like something inside me just woke up. And to realize that before a book was a book, it was a manuscript. It was something to be handled. It was something to be developed and really, creatively and messily so. And that's really what drew me to realize that editing was not just something that I was good at, the crossing of the T's and dotting of the I's, but something that I could really, really love. And so I started my business based on, based out of that, out of wanting to be in the process with the authors, because I had been basically previously managing a team of editors. So I got to see them doing it. And I just thought, I want to do this for myself. And as I've been in business 6 years now, very quickly I realized that, again, in addition to creatively helping a person develop their manuscript, there was so much emotional weight to this process of creating something, of developing something, of putting it out into the world, whether to that first person, that editor who's going to give you their professional, critique, or the world. And that's where it was one of those moments where, a lot of coaches, business coaches will say, what's the thing that you are inherently good at and that you love and you're probably not charging for, right? Like, this is the thing that makes you different and you probably just take it for granted. And so you're adding it on top of this thing that you do. And that was when I realized, okay, yes, I'm an editor. Yes, I love stories. Yes, I love being in that process. But more than that, I love the connection and the emotional support and guidance I can provide to this creator of this story. And that journey has kind of matured over 6 years. And here I am now as the book coach. So I actually help women write their books from scratch, from the beginning. And even previous to that, with my online program, I'm kind of giving women the tools to really embody the writer and the author that they want to be, and maybe hope, but are afraid that they're not.
It's amazing. And it's such an emotional process, writing and like getting to write a book. Not that I haven't published. I've written half a book, which is like on the shelf. But
a lot more of us have written half a book than have written a whole book.
Right. But I've been through, I've seen clients go through that process, and, just obviously understanding that writing process for myself of like the resistance that shows up between you having the idea and the desire to like putting your butt in the chair and putting the words on the page. So I'm really curious to hear from you, like, what are some of the key pieces of that transition moment that people go through when they're like thinking of writing a book to actually beginning to write their book?
For my clients in deciding to work with me, it's really a leap of faith. It's something that they've tried to do on their own before and haven't been able to sustain. There's so many reasons why that might happen. And a lot of them are systemic. A lot of them are just, ambient conditions within our culture and ambient influences that affect the way that what we expect from ourselves and how much pressure we put on ourselves. There's so many ways to feel defeated and be discouraged and not get started in your book writing process. For those who decide to work with me, it's that leap of faith, right? It's that leap of faith that we take when we decide to work with a new coach, or we decide to invest in ourselves in a big way where we know that we're capable. We know that if we have the right support, the right structure, the accountability, and the guidance, and we just show up, then we're going to do this. We're dedicated to doing this. But it takes a great deal of trust. And it's scary to make that kind of decision for ourselves. So, yeah, I think that for me, that's it's that leap of trust, that faith, that really gets you started.
Right. And I think that's the challenge with creative projects is, because we all experience resistance when we're doing something new or we're starting something that we haven't done before. We have like imposter syndrome, fears about being good enough, like logistical things in terms of like not knowing how to do things or how long something is going to take and how to fit that into our life and our priorities. But I feel like with writing, there's this like whole other layer of resistance that comes to just for the fact that it's so deeply personal and it's connected to your heart and it's connected to your soul. And it just takes you to that deeper layer of vulnerability of, fear of exposure or fear of tapping into something that's like an uncomfortable truth about yourself. And, there's usually like an impulse that's driving us that is so deeply personal. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the, like the hurdles or like the strategies that that you've seen really support people to get over that hump?
Firstly, I'll say that the process of writing a novel in particular, or a memoir, something book length, it's so big. It's my programs limited to a 6-month process, but without that kind of a structure, it could be a years-long process. There's so much shadow work in this process of writing a book, because you might have a completely imagined fictional character, set up plot, world, and still you will realize at some point in this process that your subconscious is showing you things that you have not been able to or ready to process and deal with until now. It really is like such a mysterious process. Again, where this trust comes in, like of just showing up and letting that kind of channel through, and trusting that your subconscious is often weaving together a story or a form that your logical brain, the front of your brain is not capable of grasping. And so in terms of what the tools that we use, I think the thing that I most want to impart, not just to my clients, but also to any listeners out there who are thinking of writing their book right now, is that we expect it to be hard. We expect it to be so hard that we probably can't do it. And that is honestly the most limiting and problematic issue of the entire endeavor, is that we expect it to be hard, and therefore we allow it to be harder than it has to be. So one of the things that I work with my clients right away on is kind of, how do we shed some of these layers of expectation that you have to bleed to make this thing work? And that's the law that we've been brought up with, this very able-bodied white male kind of legend that you have to sit at your typewriter and bleed whilst drinking a scotch and smoking a cigar, right, with some, with a rifle behind you on the wall in order to be a legitimate writer. The reality is, this process needs feminizing. It needs making more accessible, more loving, more amenable to your actual life. Because if it's not, then it does feel impossible, and it will be impossible for most of us. So right off the bat, we work on, okay, like, let's really take stock of everything that's going on in your life. My writers, we writing a book in 6 months, they're moving, they're getting married, they have a brand new baby. This is not like, they don't have acres of land and silence in a little hut somewhere to write their book alone. Like, again, that's just not realistic, and it's not fiscally possible for most of us. So it's really taking the whole process off the pedestal and allowing for the fact that this can be fun, as you do with your clients. This can be easy. This can be like a joyride where you allow your critical mind, that inner critic who is just, is incessant for many of us, to, to sit in the passenger seat basically and be quiet, so that we can allow the kind of the very magical and mystical process of creation to come through us without ourselves getting in the way.
So good. So good. I love it. And I'm curious for you, like, what's your relationship with your writing projects? Like, do you have one main one that you're focused on? Do you have like a few side ones? How do you kind of navigate, your process with what to focus on, and like how many projects do you sort of allow yourself to have?
So you're asking me as the writer as opposed to the writing coach. This is funny. Okay. So I laugh with my husband about this a lot. I do not follow my own practices and guidance beyond the daily rituals, routines, and practices for my own well-being and my own creative kind of consistency. I think of my own writing practice as, it's a spiritual practice for me. It's kind of a devotional practice. And so and also one where, whilst I am writing and I have ideas for books and I follow them, I've never personally felt myself ready to place myself in the position that my clients are ready to place themselves into my hands. So I'm rebellious when it comes to my writing practices. I am, I have a few kind of different projects on the go, and I work seasonally. For myself, I'm a very a seasonal creator, and seasonally, I want to align my energetics to the season that I'm in, both in my life and in my business year and all of the rest of it. So I love winter for going inward, whether that be by creating and writing, or just by journaling, by studying, and kind of doing that kind of more spiritual practice. So, my advice to all writers is to do what feels right for you, and not to be hard on yourself for not hitting a writing goal, a word count goal, a deadline goal. Again, we're kind of raised to be the kind of the taskmaster of our own creative output. So many of my clients, when they come to me, they feel like their problem is that they're not being productive enough. They're not being disciplined enough. They are not applying more force to the situation. And a lot of my writing practice, my spiritual and business practices in the past few years have really been an undoing of that kind of rigidity and those kinds of rules and those kinds of assessments and judgments of myself. That is the graduate of a very strict English all-girls school. I was raised to believe our success were the necessary tools for success. So yes, I kind of practice radical creativity in my own life where no rules apply. I do this as a means of communicating with myself, with whatever higher power you may believe in, and really practicing open curiosity and really, honing my own sense of my own intuition in those realms.
Yeah, and I mean that is the definition of creativity, isn't it? And it's like when we lay it out like that, it's like, well, it's not surprising that like being the hard taskmaster hasn't worked, because that's kind of the opposite of creativity. And like I do feel that is partly, the legacy of like Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art. And there's definitely like some truth to it. Like you do have to like put your ass in a seat and like take action to put words on a page. But I feel like Elizabeth Gilbert kind of like counteracts that idea of like the art is a war, and like it can be a flow, like it can be fun, it can be easy. And I love how you describe that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, with all things in life, it's not one thing. Creativity, writing a book, it's all the things all the time. And we get caught up in this binary thinking of like, well, now it feels difficult, so therefore it is difficult and hard, and now it's no longer fun. Whereas, in reality, in truth, our world is neither good or bad. We are neither successful or unsuccessful. We are all things at all times. And we deny ourselves a lot of our own power and agency by trying to fit ourselves and our experiences into these boxes of positive and negative, push, pull, hard and easy. So it's this really about that, getting comfortable with the uncertainty of all things, which is why it's become so apparent to me in my life, in my business, in my own, creative practices, that all these things are one spiritual path for me, and for, to greater or lesser degrees for my clients in their own realms. It's really about your own journey to find a sense of stability in a very unstable world.
I could talk to you about this all day. Thank you so much for coming on. I love this conversation so much. And for anyone who's interested in learning more about what you're up to and where they can find you, please let us know.
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram at Juniper Literary. You can sign up for my at-home retreat, which is a really kind of in-depth and really mindset-based workbook called The Ambitious Writer's Guide to Realizing Dreams. You can find that at juniperediting.com/ambitious. And during this month of April, we're also in the midst of a launch for the next Ambitious Authors Mastermind, which is the group version of my one-on-one 6-month book writing program. So come find me.
Amazing. Definitely go and check her out. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.